Most High, Ahaya Bahashim Yeshaya. The first thing we're going to go into, which may take a little bit of work here, but we're going to see if we can get through it as quick as possible. We're going into uh, the truth about Egyptology. You might have seen some of the brothers on YouTube and all these other areas teaching that that all history, y'all can do this anytime y'all want. That all history comes out of Egypt, and that we are Egyptians. And you have some people online saying they are master teachers, claiming that according to their history, the Bible is a white man's book. This is their quotes. And that it's plagiarism because all the stories that you read of in the Bible were originally in ancient Egypt, and they can prove it. Now, while they do have some good points, and they're not wrong about everything, they're in error when it comes to Israel. Okay? You're going to find that the pagan deities that are worshipped in the Catholic Church today and the Christian Church are the same deities that was worshipped back in ancient Egypt. But that have nothing to do with the Bible. If you read the Bible, if they have read the Bible, they would understand that the Bible condemns paganism and the worships of Egyptology and what the pagan church is doing today. But what they do is they say, since the Catholic Church is teaching the Immaculate Conception and different things that they know was in ancient Egypt, they automatically relate it to the Bible without understanding. And any learned historian will tell you that they know for sure that all the characters, or the majority of the characters written in the Bible, are people of color. So there's no way you'll get respected if you make statements like the Bible is a white man's book. It's hard to get respect when there's historians who know that all the characters in the Bible are black people. Okay? The disciples were black. Get Acts 13:1. Let's get that first. Christ was black. And we're not saying this because we're pushing color. The Bible will tell you that. Okay? So these are unlearned statements that some of these people make to pull the children of Israel out of the Bible and then to guide them into a new philosophy like Egyptology and the science of Egyptology. But they first must make a ploy to pull you out of your own book. That's why they make unlearned statements, and only the unlearned will follow it. The first statement, when they say that the Bible is a white man's book, that's enough for you to say, you know what, this conversation is done. I'm getting out of here. Because all the historians from past history, Socrates, Josephus, all of them knew that the Israelites were black. That was second nature. Read Acts 13:1 first.
Acts 13:1. Now there were in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers as Barnabas and Simeon.
There were certain teachers such as Barnabas and Simeon. Barnabas was a disciple. Simeon is Peter, which was a disciple, which were called what?
That was called Niger.
Called what?
That was called Niger.
They were called Niger. Niger. Niger is black. So the disciples were called black. So when they make statements like the Bible is a white man's book, if it was a white man's book, the first thing they would have did was change that. Why would they want people to know that Peter and Barnabas and all the disciples were black? So they should learn the book before they try to discredit it. A lot of them are just repeating what their teachers told them without researching the book. All right, that's number one. Now, when it comes to science in Egypt, that comes from Egypt, and mathematics, we don't deny that greatness was in the land of Egypt. By denying that, we would be denying ourselves. But the claim we're staking is that when the children of Israel left Egypt, no new pyramids erected. That's not conjecture. That's not an opinion. That's fact. So if the Egyptians were great in all this mathematics, why there's no new pyramids being erected? Why weren't they erected after the history of the children of Israel exodus from Egypt? Now, the argument that these Egyptologists push, and they get this philosophy from a Hamitic or an Egyptian philosopher named Manethos. The philosophy they push, or what they push amongst the populace, is the Israelites did not exist. They did not exist because there's no record of Moses. This is what they say. There's no record of Moses or the children of Israel ever being in the land of Egypt. That's what they say. So by them making this record, they're saying that Israel never existed, by them saying this. Now, there's history that someone was there. Even Manethos came up with a philosophy and started pushing it through their historians, the same way the historians make up their history in America, like the European history. The Africans or the Hamitic people had their own historians to twist history. Okay? And Manethos pushed that theory that Israel wasn't in Egypt. Why? Because once the God of Israel took down Pharaoh and his army, the Pharaoh made a decree to strike all existence of Moses and Israel from Egypt, so that he wouldn't be reminded of the God that killed his son. So if you want to know why there's no history of Egypt or Israel in Egypt, it's because the Pharisees had the power to strike people from history. They was calling themselves the evening and morning star. And once he got back, after he lost his chariots in the Red Sea, he went back to Egypt and sat down with his historians and say, I don't want any existence. If anyone even utter his name or show any existence, I'll have their head. So they opened up all the records and took Moses and Israel out of the records. And for the things they couldn't hide, they claimed that an Asiatic people came into Egypt, took them down for a period, and just walked away, called the Hyksos period. Now, and mind you, that's the only place in history in Egypt where people came in the country, ruled the country, and no one knows who they are today. We're going to prove to you that by them making that statement that they couldn't hide, the Hyksos, that they know that the children of Israel were there. They just call them a different name. They call them Hyksos, which is Hyksos. Now, we're going to go into some records. We're going to go into the Holy Bible. The Holy Bible. And we're going into, let me show you a Josephus because mine's a little tore down. Here's a Josephus. I have a very old one. But it's called The Complete Works of Josephus.
Your entry is not valid.
Okay? We're going to go into these records and prove beyond any shadow of a doubt that not only was Israel in Egypt, all the greatness in Egypt was attributed to the children of Israel. All the greatness in Egypt. And when Israel left Egypt, it became a desert. Okay? Now, let's start with Abraham. Okay? Let's start with Abraham. Let's go to the book of Josephus. What chapter are you in? The 8th chapter, right? And the 2nd paragraph. Read that.
Antiquity of the Jews, chapter 8, paragraph 2.
Go ahead.
For whereas the Egyptians were formerly addicted to different customs.
It says, for whereas the Egyptians were formerly addicted to different customs, read,
and despised one another's sacred and accustomed rites, and were very angry one with another on that account. Abraham conferred with each of them in computing the reasonings they made use of, everyone for their own practices, demonstrated that such reasonings were vain and void of truth.
So their philosopher, and even Abram in past history, told them that their rights and the things they were dealing with were void of truth. And what did Abraham do from there? Read.
Whereupon he was admired by them in those conferences as a very wise man,
Go ahead.
and one of great sagacity when he discoursed on any subjects he undertook, and this not only in understanding, but in persuading other men also to assent to him. He communicated to them the arithmetic.
So he showed the Egyptians arithmetic. Now, mind you, Abraham was not from Egypt. He was living in the land of the Chaldees. Okay? So in his goings, he ran into Egyptians. And he showed them what?
He communicated to them arithmetic.
He showed them arithmetic. So you can't say that all arithmetic and mathematics came from Egypt. That's not the truth. Read.
And delivered to them the science of astronomy.
The science of astronomy was also taught to the Egyptians by Abram or Abraham. Read.
For before Abraham came into Egypt, they were unacquainted with those parts of learning.
Read that again.
For before Abraham came into Egypt, they were unacquainted with those parts of learning.
Before Abraham came into Egypt, the Egyptians did not know anything about arithmetic, science, or astronomy. So how can they say that all science and all history comes from Egypt? Read.
For that science came from the Chaldeans into Egypt, and from thence to the Greeks also.
See that? So the land of the Chaldees, where Abram was, had that information before Egypt. And who was living in the land of Chaldees? Abraham and his father Terah. So they was dealing with science, and the proof to you they was dealing with science and mathematics, Terah was during the time of Nimrod. And Nimrod built a tower almost to the heavens. So how could they build those towers in Genesis without arithmetic and mathematics? That blows Egypt out of the water right there. How could they have built those towers in Babylon? You understand? How could they have done that pre-Egypt if Egypt started mathematics and history? See, these brothers be putting themselves in a box. They get themselves so caught up in Egyptology and its greatness, they can't see nothing beyond that. We can see beyond that because our forefathers were in all these civilizations and made them great. So we can see past Egypt because once we left, Egypt fell. We can see past Rome because once we left Rome, Rome fell. Okay? So each civilization became great because of God's people. Through Abraham, all nations shall be blessed. You just can't look at the time period that the Most High was blessing Egypt while we were there and saying that that's the cradle of all civilization. That's unlearned. That's unlearned. Okay? First of all, and then here's another thing they claim, is that the story of Noah and the ark came from Egypt. Now, that's ridiculous in itself because Noah had 3 sons. Ham, let's get it out of the Bible dictionary. He had 3 sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. And I think, don't you think it took some mathematics to build an ark? So who had that mathematics? They admit that the Noah's ark, you understand, was in Egypt history. But they claim all mathematics came from Egypt when Matazarium's father Noah built an ark based on the cubits that the Most High told him to build it. That was mathematics. So even in their own history, they are contradicting themselves. Even in their own history. Because they admit that the ark happened and Noah happened. Okay, so where did Noah get the diagram to build the boat? And did he use rulers? Did it take math for that? Was not Noah Ham's father? And wasn't Ham on the boat before the Egyptians were born?
Your entry is not
That's
valid.
common sense. That's common sense. Ham was Noah's son on the boat that was built with mathematics while the Egyptians were in Ham's loins. So don't get you stuck in Egyptology and belittle yourself, because our history goes way back to Adam. Okay? Now, get Ham out of the Bible dictionary.
Ham.
Put up the Bible dictionary for those that are not familiar with it. Okay, read Ham.